I just wanted to take a few minutes to address a bit of a weird opinion I've seen recently. I've been seeing it probably for the last year, but I've just sort of stayed quiet about it because I've thought it's just kind of nonsensical. But it sort of hit a tipping point a couple months ago, and that was the idea that Batman is ruining comics, specifically DC comics. And this is something that fans of obscure characters have said forever, actually, because Batman is able to warrant like 4 ongoing series from DC at times, while like other characters just get their run canceled. Like Starfire gets a very short personal run. Hawk and Dove for the New 52 just got obliterated sales-wise. I mean, like, that's sort of the problem here. And I wanted to give my opinion on it, just my take really quick. This is nothing new. So what made me talk about this is probably what I should go to first. And that was actually a comment from Tony Isabella back from October 23rd. I know I'm sort of digging up a corpse here, so that's not my intention. Don't go after this creator. This is the creator of Black Lightning. But Tony Isabella had said, "Here's a tip. Don't ask me to join groups or visit pages that have Batman in their titles. He was once my favorite comics hero. Now I consider him one of the most toxic and the ruination of DC Comics. DC hurts their other characters by making Batman the center of their universe." So I'm going to say one thing that'll surprise you first off is that I think Tony does have a point here. And it's a point that I think should be explored, but I fundamentally disagree with his statement. And this is not just about Tony, this is about the general tone of this idea, which has been perpetrated for the last year, at least, like I said. But it's this idea that by focusing on Batman, they're hurting other characters. Yeah, that's true, actually. Because if you look at comic books, so many of them, like I said, have been canceled, like the smaller series, if they're not connected to the Batman or Superman family in general. That just happens a lot. Or the Justice League, but they happen to have both those characters in there. So it's kind of funny how we will see so many ongoing titles. Like, I'm just thinking back to the beginning of New 52. Just thinking of ongoing series. I know we had Batman. We had Batman Incorporated. This was all right near the beginning of New 52. Batman the Dark Knight, Detective Comics, and Batman/Superman. That was like 5 ongoing at the same time that I know of. And some of those ended a little earlier. We also had Batman and Robin. If I didn't mention that, I don't really remember. And that is too much. I think that overexposure is a problem for this character, just like any character. But that's sort of the issue here, is that to call Batman toxic, like it's his fault, now I consider him one of the most toxic and the ruination of DC Comics. And it's not just Tony saying this. I've seen a lot of people, both in the comments of YouTube and online in general, saying Batman ruined comic books, or he ruined these DC Comics. We've seen this forever whenever there's a popular character. I don't understand what is new about this to anybody. What really has hurt DC Comics and Marvel Comics and the comic book industry in general and the entertainment industry in general is a resistance to change. We see this over and over again, and it's both the company and the people buying the product. It honestly is both. And I know this is a cardinal sin here to call out the consumer for anything nowadays, because it's really been used as a shield. Like, a new movie comes out that people think is bad. Like, okay, let's just jump to The Last Jedi for a second. I know I'm all over the place, but just bear with me. The Last Jedi comes out, super divisive, and the people who didn't like it were just called toxic. Yeah, that's a bad way to use that. That's terrible, and that's stupid. That's a bad shield. But the difference there is that a lot of those people were not upset about change. They were upset about specific choices made. Whereas in comics, one thing I've noticed as someone who has bought in these things since I was 10 years old, is that every time a character goes through a dramatic change, there's a huge backlash to it. And sometimes they're dumb changes, but sometimes they're done pretty well. So Captain America with the Hail Hydra thing from the Secret Empire, his arc was actually done pretty good. Like his arc up into the beginning of Secret Empire falls off, it's not that great, but the arc building up to it is really good. But people were pissed immediately, and most of those people were actually not comics fans. They were fans of the movie version of Captain America. That's sort of the point we've hit too with things becoming mainstream, is instead of shouting into a void of 100,000 people, which let's just say 100,000 buy your comic, which is actually really good comic sales if you look at comic numbers, they're not movies. But instead of just that, you now also hit the 5 million people going to see the movies that are loosely associated with that comic. And so every time there is a change, we see a backlash to it. You can see the same thing with legacy heroes, and some of them suck. Totally agree. Like Jane Foster's Thor, though, was actually good in the comics. That was a good legacy hero. Pretty interesting. The new Superman, the Chinese Superman, he was just okay. At the same time, I think it would be really disingenuous to just put this off on the fans. It's not just about them. If you look at a lot of these changes in the past, there have been so many times in comics where change has just been made to make a change. It's a gimmick. We kill off this character only to bring him back 6 months later, 10 months later, 12 months later. We change this character's costume, but not because it makes more sense practically, not because it looks better, but because we want to ruffle feathers. That's another thing the comics industry needs to get over, is change as a gimmick. Change needs to be done because it's good and compelling to the writers and the readers. It needs to improve the quality of the overall product. Otherwise, the consumer will never get past the change is bad phase of comics because they've encountered so many changes that are either just mediocre and pointless to horrible that they have a right to be resistant to those things, because at the end of the day, they know the classic version of a character or a classic character isn't going to be an abomination compared to whatever they cook up next. Well, we know Batman sells. Well, we know Spider-Man sells. Just make that. And it does suck because a lot of characters do get pushed to the side and forgotten because of this. But to say that that's the fault of one character is very silly to me. I don't think that makes any sense logically. I don't think that makes Batman toxic. And I've seen some things too about how because of Batman's origin, other characters have to have a tragic origin. And so it's not just Batman's sales hurting comics characters. It's the fact that his origin needs to be with everyone else. And that's not true either. I mean, we've seen tragic origins all the way back. I mean, not just in comic books. Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve. Like some of the first myths and mythological writings in human civilization are born from tragic backstory. That's something that's always happened. And it's this idea of trying to rise above that tragedy, trying to become more than you are. That's why people love Batman. Batman's not toxic. Batman's not ruining anything. And if you look at the last 15 years of DC Comics and what they've put out, some of the best stories they've written have been about Batman. There have been some terrible ones too. Batman Odyssey, looking at you. But there have been some amazing ones. The Court of Owls is a great example of that. Death of the Family. Batman Endgame, not the Avengers movie. These are fantastic. The arc with, what is it? Not Starro, but the baby Starro from the new Justice League. Scott Snyder wrote that as well. Fantastic. Heavily involving Batman. Superman's in the same boat. Some of the best stories from DC have been Superman. It's just they're few and far between, and a lot of them are mediocre. And that's sort of the problem, is I think we as consumers need to stop being so resistant to change and resist change when it's bad. If they are going to change something in a comic, I think we should try to reserve judgment for that thing until we actually see what it is. I think it's way too easy for us to just jump on it and say, this sucks, this is terrible, they've run out of ideas. Because when they try a new idea, if we all just refuse to buy it, but it's good, that's why they won't try those new ideas out, because there's no demand for them. And if you think for a second that the people running these companies don't look at like the money they're bringing in, like executives don't look at, oh yeah, you know, that's great. I love that Hawk and Dove comic. That has like amazing artistic value. Oh, you said it's hemorrhaging money? We'll float that thing for 5 years. No way. Nobody does that because that's dumb business. And that's what this is at the end of the day. It's a business we love that creates a lot of art that we love. And the people creating it, writing it, drawing it, they are not as interested in the business aspect other than providing for their family. But the people who own these characters, They are. And you know what? Nobody wants to say this, but they have to be. Because at the end of the day, if DC Comics or Marvel Comics is not turning a profit, there are no more comics. That's just the way it is. So Batman is not ruining comics. Batman's not ruining anything. Spider-Man's not ruining comics. In a way, we are. We want to see new ideas. We need to support them. At the same time, the creators need to make those ideas good. You need to make a good new idea that pulls people in. There's a reason why Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, even the villains, and I'm crossing DC and Marvel here, Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Joker, all these people, there's a reason why they have held pop culture interest for so long. It's because they were good ideas that you were able to build upon and expand upon. You need more of those. We don't see new characters anymore. We don't see new Batman characters even anymore. What new Batman characters have we seen in the last 10 years? We've seen the Batman metal versions of Batman. Those are great. We've seen, obviously, Barbados. We have seen Gotham and Gotham Girl of mediocre quality. We have seen Bloom, I guess. Like, he was cool. That's the thing. You got to make these characters and make them everlasting. You've built myths. You have built a myth with Superman. You have built a myth with Batman. You have built a myth with Spider-Man. Build a myth that the people can get behind and they will support it. It's not just our fault that new ideas are not supported. It's not just Batman's fault that new ideas are not supported. Those ideas need to be good, and you need to put marketing behind them so that the people buying your product know that they're good, know that you care, and know that you care about them and what they want to see as well. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm interested to see what you think. It might be a controversial take, but it's how I feel about it. And I will be interested to read your responses. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one.